most of the problems in today's world, health-wise, are not problems of deficiencies, but rather problems of excess. So I'm back from a little run. I'm gonna have some bananas, make a smoothie. I had a bunch of bananas go super ripe on me the other day, so put them all in the fridge, and that way they'll last, another couple of days before I have to throw them away. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about deficiencies, because it's interesting if you think about it. Everything you hear almost about nutrition is about getting enough protein, getting enough calcium, getting enough omega-3, getting enough of this, enough of that. And every single food that you hear about, you always hear about what nutrient they're rich in. So milk is so great, right? Because it's so rich in calcium and protein. And then you have bananas are so great because they're rich in potassium. And this and that, and flax seeds, they're so rich in omega-3, so they're great. We only hear about how much nutrients is in a food, and when it comes to health and disease, we always hear about deficiencies. Oh, you're on a vegan diet, oh my god, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough calcium? Are you getting enough iron? Are you getting enough of this? Are you getting enough of that? Deficiencies, oh my god. It's like this kind of crazy panic almost. About deficiencies. And here's the funny thing. Most of the problems in today's world, health-wise, are not problems of deficiencies, but rather problems of excess. The biggest health risks that we have today, diabetes, cancer, heart disease of various sorts, all kinds of disease almost. It's mostly related to getting too much of certain nutrients, and the science shows this again and again. Too much fat leads to heart disease, too much saturated fat especially, too much animal foods basically, because they have a lot of fat, a lot of saturated fat, leads to clogging of the arteries, and it also leads to diabetes, right? Too much fat in the bloodstream paralyzes insulin, so you won't be able to process blood sugar properly. So too much fat in people's diet causes them to have diabetes, which is a crippling disease. Diabetes is one of the worst. It's ultimately can be deadly, of course, but it's very, very inconvenient to have diabetes. And it's not a problem of deficiency, it's a problem of too much fat. Cancer has generally been correlated, even though we're still learning a lot about cancers, there's a lot of correlations between too much protein intake, especially from animal-based foods, and cancer. So too much protein people are eating, too much fat people are getting, and people are also eating, because they're eating a lot of meat and stuff like that, they can get too much of certain nutrients. So too much iron is actually dangerous, of course, and a lot of people are having these issues, too much iron. Too much of any nutrient can be just as bad as too little. Although some of the nutrients we get, our body can just flush out the excess. But really, nutrition is all about balance. It's all about the whole food. We don't really just want to fragmentalize and just look at one single nutrient and isolate them from all the other nutrients. Even though that's a useful strategy in some respects, we also got to remember the whole. We got to look at the whole picture if we want the real deal. So we don't want too much of any nutrient. We don't want too little. We just want just enough. But again, back to the original point, deficiencies are not something that we really need to concern ourselves with all that much. I mean, it's real, sure. Deficiencies are real. And if you are deficient in a nutrient, that's not good. I mean, obviously, for optimal health, we need enough of every single nutrient. But again, if you are eating a diet of whole foods, ideally a diet of all tropical fruits, if you're eating a diet of tropical fruits exclusively almost, papayas, mangoes, bananas, coconuts, you're going to be so sufficient in every nutrient. You won't believe it. I mean, go into chronometer.com and put in 3,000 calories worth of papayas and mangoes. Just take a look at that, okay? That's what I'm talking about. That's nutritionally sufficient stuff. If you're eating a standard vegan diet would be a problematic diet. Lots of grains, lots of legumes that have anti-nutrients that stop you from taking up enough iron, enough calcium, that sort of thing. Also typically a lot of fat, a lot of oil. But if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, maybe a diet based around a lot of fruit, but also maybe some cooked foods, maybe some roots and tubers, maybe a little bit of grains and legumes. Generally speaking, that is like the most nutrient sufficient diet you can really have. Calorie for calorie. If you look at things like meat and dairy, they're not really all that good because they have way too much of some nutrients and not enough of other nutrients. Fruit, really, calorie for calorie. Fruit really comes closest to matching human nutritional needs from any food that we could eat. All right, I'm putting some water in my smoothie now. There we go. And now I'm gonna blend. There we go, about 800 calories or so of just bananas and a little bit of water. Oh, that's good. So in here, everything is there. Every single nutrient, dietary nutrient anyway, needed for human health is in there. Sure, bananas kind of fall short, theoretically, on some nutrients maybe, but that's made up for by eating other fruits and other foods. Generally speaking, if you eat a diet based around whole foods, fresh foods, lots of fruit, enough calories, of course, deficiencies are not something that you really need to worry about. Of course, because we're living outside of our natural habitat in the tropics, in the forest, on the savannah, whatever, we're not being exposed to maybe as much B12 as we naturally would. We may be not being exposed to as much sunshine as we naturally would. So supplementing with vitamin D and B12, yeah, that's a possible theory. We'll get into that in other videos to come in a few weeks or months. But the idea that we, or almost anyone in this world we're living in today, needs to worry about deficiencies, especially those eating a whole food plant-based diet, fruit-based diet, it's absurd. Really, relax. Eat enough calories of whole fresh ripe fruit and some roots and tubers, if you will, or even grains and legumes to a lesser degree. Eliminate that oil, those empty calories that comes in form of oil. Eliminate refined sugar. Eliminate processed foods, and of course eliminate animal foods. Once you've eliminated those foods, deficiencies isn't really a problem. Even for the person on the standard Western diet, severe deficiencies are quite rare. The problems that are plaguing humanity is an excess of fat, excess of protein, too much animal foods, not enough plant foods, not enough fiber. Well, those things of course are deficiencies, technically deficiencies in fiber, but the real problems come from that excess of what we do not want. Toxic stuff as well, preservatives and things that are not ideal to consume, as well as alcohol and other toxins that people willingly consume. So I think the point there is we need to focus on what's most important and most urgent. And for most people in today's world, deficiency is not what we need to worry all about. And as I said, every single website you read about this food and that food is so great because of this nutrient, because of that nutrient. Look, we're getting all the nutrients if we eat good foods, theoretically. What we need to worry about is eliminating and reducing the intake of certain substances that we're getting way too much of, and this is getting way too little press. People are not talking enough about keeping that fat intake low, keeping that protein intake low, keeping that omega-6 intake low. People are supplementing with omega-3 because it's so good and stuff, but in reality all they need to do is reduce that incredibly high omega-6 intake, so that the conversion of omega-3 in diet is better into DHA and EPA and that sort of thing. it's rather than consuming more of one nutrient because we're consuming in excess of another, let's just reduce that nutrient that we're consuming in excess, like the omega-6, and we don't have to do anything really about the omega-3, if you know what I mean. Fruit, by the way, has an average of a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, which is what is recommended officially. So, the question is, do we really need so much omega-3, or do we just need to consume less omega-6? So, again, there's this idea of excess versus deficiencies, and the focus is always on deficiencies rather than actually focusing on maybe we're eating too much of certain things. I'm gonna get to my smoothie now. If you have any questions, of course, you can always send me an email. We have a website, sweetnaturalliving.com, where you can send us emails if you want. You can also contact me for health coaching. I do that via Skype if you want some specific guidance. Maybe you're starting out on a vegan diet or a raw vegan diet, or just want to learn more about how to optimize your nutrition. I would be happy to sort of share my view with you there through Skype. You can look at the website, the information is there about coaching. And of course, stay tuned here on this channel and be sure to subscribe so you can stay tuned for all the upcoming videos about health, fruit, nutrition, fitness, life, happiness, all those cool things. Have a good day. I will see you around.